November 2022. Picture this. A 30-year-old guy named Sam Bankman-Fried is sitting on a net worth of $16 billion. People are literally calling him the next Warren Buffett. He's testifying before Congress, bankrolling politicians. Honestly, by all accounts, it looked like he was on a rocket ship, straight to becoming the world's first trillionaire. But here's the crazy part. 9 days. That is literally all it took for that $16 billion to just vanish into thin air. Gone. Today, instead of running a global financial empire, Bankman-Fried sits in a federal prison cell serving a 25-year sentence.
So, in this explainer, we're diving straight into the FTX downfall from $16 billion to zero. We're going to trace the anatomy of the second largest fraud in American history, unpack how this massive illusion was built, how violently it collapsed, and look at his increasingly desperate legal maneuvers to walk free.
All right, part 1, the illusion of trust and building a $32 billion empire.
Bankman-Fried just didn't fit the classic profile of a scammer. He's the son of Stanford law professors, an MIT physics grad, a Wall Street quant at the ultra-secretive Jane Street Capital. By 2017, he founds his own crypto trading firm, Alameda Research. 2 years later, he launches the FTX exchange, designed for everyday digital currency trading. And the growth? It was explosive. By 2021, the valuation hits an absolutely astronomical $32 billion.
And FTX wasn't just a company. It was being sold to us as the invincible future of finance. He was pulling in retail investors, massive pension funds, top-tier venture capitalists. And he did it all while constantly preaching this idea of effective altruism, basically claiming he was only amassing all this immense wealth so he could eventually give it all away to charity. He really positioned himself as the savior of modern capitalism.
He was brilliant at manufacturing a very specific public persona. You know the look, the anti-Wall Street banker rocking cargo shorts and wrinkled t-shirts. He's up there testifying before Congress as the so-called voice of reason for crypto regulation and pouring tens of millions into political campaigns. He wasn't just building a corporate brand here. He was effectively weaponizing blind trust.
Which brings us to part 2, the secret backdoor, the missing wall between the money and the madness.
See, the public narrative, the story everyone bought into, was that FTX and Alameda Research were entirely separate entities, a solid wall between them. But behind that polished corporate logo, prosecutors uncovered something dark, a hidden software backdoor coded directly into the exchange. And through that backdoor, Alameda could just siphon customer deposits, no limits, no internal alarms tripping, nothing.
It's the ultimate double life. On one hand, you have his public reassurances, constantly telling everyone FTX customer funds are completely safe, backed one-to-one. On the other hand, the grim reality. As the courts would later lay out, he was secretly draining customer money, literally using the hottest exchange in the world as his own personal piggy bank.
So where exactly did $8 billion go? Well, the Department of Justice mapped out this sprawling network of misappropriation, and it's wild. We're talking massive luxury real estate purchases in the Bahamas, millions dropped on political contributions to buy influence, extravagant celebrity endorsements, and, crucially, incredibly high-risk bets made through Alameda Research. Basically, he was gambling on the crypto casino floor using money that simply was not his. And the ticking time bomb in all this? Alameda's balance sheet. When that document finally leaked in November 2022, it was a massive wake-up call. It revealed that their assets weren't mostly cash or solid independent investments. No, the massive slice of their pie was FTT. That's a made-up digital token, invented and completely controlled by FTX itself. It was literally a multi-billion-dollar house of cards built entirely on monopoly money. Part 3. Fraud of epic proportions. The collapse and the trial. Now, when rival exchange Binance announced it was going to sell off its massive holdings of that FTT token, sheer, unadulterated panic ignited.
That announcement sparked a modern-day bank run. Customers frantically rushed to pull their funds out, exposing the brutal truth. The billions were just missing. FTX rapidly filed for bankruptcy. By December, Bankman-Fried is arrested in the Bahamas, clapped in irons, and extradited to Manhattan as a federal defendant. The so-called boy genius was suddenly facing decades behind bars.
Now you might be wondering, how on earth do you defend yourself when $8 billion just vanishes? Well, at his 2023 trial, Bankman-Fried actually didn't deny the collapse itself. His defense strategy? He claimed it was just a liquidity issue, a temporary cash flow problem. He seriously argued that if he had just been given more time, his long-term investments would have eventually paid every single customer back.
But U.S. District Judge Lewis Kaplan was not having it. He severely restricted that speculative defense because the law is absolute here. Legal fraud occurs the exact moment a defendant tricks someone into handing over their money. It absolutely does not matter if you stubbornly believed you could eventually pay them back down the line. The deception itself, that is the crime.
So witness after witness takes the stand, including his closest deputies and his ex-girlfriend, Caroline Allison. They testified directly against him, detailing exactly how that backdoor operated. And the jury? They cut through all the noise in less than 5 hours. The verdict was devastating. Guilty on all 7 felony charges, including wire fraud and conspiracy. Which brings us to the present. Part 4, the final appeal, and that critical June 2026 ruling. See, Bankman-Fried fought this conviction tooth and nail. He claimed the trial was unfair, that the judge was biased, but on June 12, 2026, a 3-judge panel completely crushed his appeal. In a massive 42-page decision, the court unanimously upheld both his conviction and his 25-year sentence. They wrote that the prosecution's evidence was, quote, conservatively stated, robust.
With the courts firmly rejecting his arguments, he's now pivoted to a highly controversial last resort. Official records from the Department of Justice's Office of the Pardon Attorney show that he has actually filed a formal application seeking a presidential pardon from President Donald Trump.
And the legal context here is super interesting. Just last year, President Trump pardoned another convicted crypto tycoon, Changpeng Zhao, the founder of Binance, following his money laundering conviction. Now, whether Bankman-Fried's massive multi-billion-dollar fraud will be viewed through a similar lens by the administration, that remains entirely uncertain. We'll have to see.
But barring that highly uncertain pardon, the reality for him is incredibly stark. Sam Bankman-Fried remains incarcerated in a low-security federal prison in California, and the next time he's eligible to walk out of those doors as a free man is the year 2044.
You know, the real lesson of the whole FTX collapse isn't really about complex algorithms or secret software backdoors. The fatal flaw was absolute, unquestioning trust. His carefully manufactured persona, the cargo shorts, the philanthropy, the genius aura, it allowed him to commit a multi-billion-dollar fraud in broad daylight, simply because people so desperately wanted to believe in him.
The FTX story shows us just how quickly billions can vanish when we trust without verifying, leaving us with one final, pretty uncomfortable question. How many other visionaries are we blindly trusting with our future right now without ever asking to look behind the curtain?